Hey everybody, we are back again for another Tuesday main slate model review and ownership review. I'm Jason over at Paydirt DFS, and nice 10 game main slate today with some pretty strong pitching options. Probably, a tougher night to really, get contrarian at pitching. So let's jump right into it. Big slate, lot to unpack. So first, looking at the range of outcomes here. We can see that the Arizona Diamondbacks are just the clear front runner offense that we should be considering tonight. We have them scoring 8 or more runs 36% of the time, which is a very high number. We maybe see a number like that once every couple weeks over here at Paydirt. So it's pretty interesting to see that. They also have the highest top score percentage by almost 4%. So that in itself, just really led you to believe that they're strong. They were a strong avenue to go. And they had some ownership, not a ton though. When we go and sort by ownership here, they're kind of middle of the pack, upper tier, I guess you could say. But when you look at them from a leverage standpoint, they're one of the most positively leveraged stacks at their ownership. And down here, so I should say up here, actually, the highest leverage stacks are some of them are kind of questionable. Pittsburgh, Soriano has been pretty decent, but they graded out well, but no ownership really going there, high leverage. Atlanta, they've been a Sheets darling the past few nights and good spot against St. Louis in the terrible bullpen. You got the Giants who just play in like the absolute worst hitters park in the country. But the Brewers are a really, really good matchup. And you also have the New York Mets, who have been starting to hit a little bit better, but they were going up against Christopher Sanchez, who, I think everybody's in agreement is a very, very good pitcher. So overall, you probably wanted to start with Arizona, and you also probably wanted to mix in Atlanta, the Athletics, the Angels. You can go to Pittsburgh too if you want to, the Mets, San Francisco. But overall, top of the sheets here, these offenses all had pretty strong leverage. So it was a pretty easy night to get different at bats. The worst teams that you could have selected based upon their current ownership, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Minnesota Twins, the Cardinals, the Royals, who are mega chalk for some reason, and the Dodgers. So that's a pretty good review about the offenses. I will show you guys where I landed in just a little bit. But now let's go take a look at the pitchers. So when we sort our pitchers here in the main slate, first thing we want to look at is this median here. You see Chris Bubich. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but that sounds probably right, Bubich. Under 9K, just fundamentally too underpriced. In this matchup too against Colorado, they're a minor league team outside of Coors Field. They are just absolutely dog shit. There's just no other really way to describe them. They suck. He's off to a pretty good start right now. I believe he's got north of 20 DraftKings points right now. But yeah, 20, almost a median of 25 at less than 9K. Top finish 47% of the time. I say 47.5% of the time. He's the highest scoring pitcher on the slate. Top five finish. He finishes the top five 82% of the time. He's got a 70% chance to score 20 or more. That is insane. And his 2X percentage, meaning even at his salary, he is the most valuable pitcher on the slate. I don't care how high this ownership is. He was a lock for me. Auto lock. In 20 lineups, I think I played him in 19 out of 20 over on DraftKings. When you sort also by this metric to 2X, you'll see that Chris Bassett was a pretty valuable pitcher at his salary, 9,000. Projects a little bit worse than Bubich, but you get the ownership discount. Bailey Ober. So I know that this was a pretty contentious point today with the models and everybody saying they want to play Ober. He stinks. They don't want to play him. 6,900, median of 16.5 against the Chicago White Sox. He might be the most mispriced pitcher of this season. Like when you really think about it, he's gone up against much better offenses and he's more than 2X this number a couple times. He's at home. The White Sox put a lineup out there with a few minor leaguers that just don't get a lot of playing time, like Bobby Dahlbeck and that fucking catcher. I don't even know his name. Amaya or something. I don't know. But I don't even know their names, right? So Bailey Ober, fine play. You just got to keep in mind what offenses you play with him. So basically, if you're in small field today and you were going something like Bailey Ober and Chris Bubich, you probably wanted to avoid the Kansas City Royals, maybe you wanted to avoid the Minnesota Twins, and so on and so forth. And you probably want to avoid the Texas Rangers. So when we sort also by median, you'll see Jose Quintana is our lowest projected pitcher. If you are new to the models and you're not sure where you need to attack, outside of looking at the ballparks, looking at the bullpens and everything, if you look for the lowest projected pitcher, that's probably a good indicator of a place of where you could go and take bats against them. So just something to keep in mind. Also, Littell, you'll see Arizona. We loved Arizona tonight. A big portion of my portfolio. When we go over to DraftKings, I will show you all that. And also 2x percentage, just showing you some other valuable pitchers. Ryan Feltner. He was a guy that I got some exposure to. The Kansas City Royals have been dreadful. Direwalk pointed out earlier today that they actually have been the worst offense in baseball, and even the worst against right-handed pitching. Chicago White Sox are better than them, even. So in this spot, Ryan Feltner, excuse me. Sorry, I'm drunk. Ryan Feltner, getting him out of Coors. He's a very good pitcher. He's had some good results. I think he was a good dart throw and probably a good pivot off of Ober and large field. Definitely not a small field play, but large field for sure. Then there's Bailey Falter. If you want to attack in LA, be my guest. I don't really want to do that. Christopher Sanchez. I didn't touch Christopher Sanchez tonight, and it's not because I don't think he's a good pitcher or he could have a good result. The New York Mets are a better offense than people give them credit for. And I don't mean better as in that they, score a bunch of runs and they put up a bunch of, they have like this like super powered offense after their top 4 or 5 guys, but they don't strike out a ton and they're good enough to just make life very, very difficult for you. So when I have Chris Bubich at 8,900 against the Colorado Rockies and Christopher Sanchez against the Mets, I could not click that in good conscience. And same thing with Bassett, but apparently Bassett is getting crushed right now. Our Discord is going a little crazy. 2 earned runs, 4 hits, only 1 out against Houston. Oh my God, this isn't good for me. And I'll explain why after, but this is not good for me. But going on, just showing you where else you Beto. I mean, we've liked Beto in the past, but definitely not tonight. You want to play Corbin if you like Payne, sure, but no. And then Renel Blanco, who you want to play a team that doesn't strike out a ton with a pitcher who doesn't strike a lot of people out. Crazy. Oh, 2 infield singles, really? Wow. Andy, aka Worm Burner, 2 infield singles. That's not good. I need him to start K'ing people. ASAP. But overall, too, that's really what you wanted. That's where you wanted to target a pitching tonight. So before we go into, where I landed tonight and some of the decisions I made, I wanted to look at something in the research sheets to just really show everybody some of the ways you can make decisions. So in these research sheets, these are all the starting pitchers that play today. It's regardless of slate. You can go and isolate the specific games that you want to look at. So if you have a shorter main slate, that's one thing I like to do, 5-6 games. I just populate those teams there so I know who I'm comparing them to. But you can look at K percentage, their walk percentage, their true average, which is a pretty good indicator of how many hits they really should be giving up. Their slugging, their expected batting average, hits in the sample, home runs in the sample, expected home runs in the sample. So looking at this, Tanner Bybee not on the slate, Jose Quintana, true average, very, very high. Expected home runs, should be giving up more than he should have. Slugging, fine. Dean Kramer not on the slate. Zach Littell, we want to attack with Arizona. He looks abysmal. 20% K rate, not great. Walk rate, fine. True average, second highest of the slate. Slugging, probably, the highest on the day, regardless of slate. Expected batting average, top 3 worst on the slate. And then you have expected home runs. He's already given up quite a few, and he should have been giving up more. So that really should just point you in the direction of Arizona. And also, when we go look at our matchup tables, this column we have right here, matchup average trend, is how good that matchup is for offense. The trending for 8+4 column here, that is an indication of that team and how much they are trending for a 8 runs or more performance. There is also a matchup 8+ trend, the matchup itself, how that's trending to give up 8+ runs or more, and the R2 to op season column. The higher number means that that team is more reliant on bad pitching to do well. The more negative the number, the more reliant the team is on I think it's good pitching to do well. And the closer you are to zero, you are essentially matchup proof. And that makes sense. Detroit's had some good performances. Tampa Bay has won some slates. San Francisco, if you can get them on the right day, can win you a lot of money. So when you sort by matchup average trend, Cincinnati not on the slate, Seattle not on the slate, Baltimore not on the slate, San Francisco against Milwaukee, but they're in a bad park. Arizona pops right there. They don't need to face great pitching to have a great day. Followed by Chicago, who put up a pretty crooked number in a first inning. A 5-run first inning is pretty impressive. And then you have the Mets. Miami's not on the slate. Milwaukee, Cleveland, Tampa Bay, Arizona. So all signs are pointing to you want to stack the Diamondbacks today. So when I go and look at our sims, I have this sorted by this is for small field, high dollar contest. So if you're playing the 44, the 88, the 250, the 888, if you just have, big balls like Mike in our Discord, you're playing the 888. When you sort by overall exposures, you're going to see the highest edge on the slate is Chris Bassett, Tim Bubich, and then we get to some batters in Tim Tawa, Brooks Lee, Chandler Simpson, Luis Urias. You're typically going to see cheaper hitters here. They're to give you more of an edge because they make some of the better offenses work. When I sort by starting pitching, you're going to see here that in small field, Bassett Bubich is probably the combo you need to go. Look, you could definitely have gone with Bailey Ober here in small field. There's nothing wrong with that. Bailey Ober shows up as the third highest most exposed pitcher in winning lineups in small field contest, but he really is overowned in small field contest. So starting with Chris Bassett and Bubich, that's probably where you should start. When you look at team exposures, you'll see Texas, the Athletics, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, and Arizona. So these are the offenses that you should probably be starting your build with. A combination of Texas, the Athletics, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Arizona. And if you wanted to go to KC, LA, feel free. When we sort by large field now, so if you're playing the $4, the mini max, you're playing the lotto. I have this sorted to large and below average. Again, unless you're, Mike with the big balls, you are not playing high dollar large field. And I don't even think they make those contests every day. So here, just to give you a little bit of a difference in large field, Chris Bubich is borderline a lock in large field. When I saw this, all I said to myself was, okay, I'm going to get as much as I can of him in large field. And then I'm just going to live with the results of it. Chris Bassett, also, very high exposed pitcher here. Right now he's -6 in his in the first inning. So let's hope that maybe he can bounce back. I don't know anything about his pitch count or anything, but yeah, he's probably toast. So especially at 9K, you don't love to see that. And also he's the most expensive pitcher on the slate. But you'll see here too, though, that every other pitcher is really a negative edge. So no matter what combination you go with, it's probably not a good idea to eat chalk batting today in large field. When you go look at the overall exposures, Tim Tawa again, Brooks Lee, Chandler Simpson, Urias, Bobby Dahlback. That's interesting. You have Maikel Garcia, Josh Smith, Kevin Newman. My favorite thing to do is I like to sort these by teams, and you go and look and see which players are, at me personally, I like to get close to 10% exposure, and then I will evaluate. But usually that's what I do to try and, not pick a stack, like the players in the stack, but maybe pick the team. So you see the Athletics, Urias, Langeliers, Butler, Blade, these guys are all, showing us positive edges. Langeliers are slightly negative. Rooker and Duhar, Atlanta, all positive edges here. Chicago, only 2 positive edges. And then when you go look at a team like Kansas City, it's like Maikel Garcia is a pretty good value, probably because the positionality, second base, third base is a little tough. Everyone else is a pretty much a negative value. And if you want to play Hunter Renfroe, who's, 37 years old and can't really hit anymore, I mean, you can if you want to, but these are the directions the models are pointing us in. So in large field, much stronger lean in large field on Texas, Tampa Bay, then Minnesota, the Athletics, and even Arizona is, a lot lower here. You have LA above them, KC. So Arizona, definitely a much better small field stack for a 5-man than probably your large field, with Texas being the clear top choice in large field. So now I'm going to go over to DraftKings, and we're going to take a look at, where some ownership landed, and I'm going to show you, what I landed on. So this is my small field build first. This is the Power Alley, the $44 5K to first. As you can see, I followed the Sims pretty routinely with Chris Bassett and Bubich. Bassett is fucking killing me here. I took Marcell Ozuna as one of the one-offs because I wanted some exposure to that Atlanta game, especially in that weather. You have Simpson here as another cheap one-off who could steal bases leading off for Tampa Bay. I expect him to be rather chalky. Josh Smith, a cheap third baseman, and then a 5-man Arizona stack. So that's what I'm going to roll with. But honestly, if Bassett is going to be, I probably am going to guess and say that Arizona is going to come in high dollar, probably a little bit higher owned than you'd see in large field. Corbin Carroll's going to make up a lot of that, but I'm probably going to leave this. And if somehow Chris Bassett can just turn this around and, start K'ing people, then maybe we got some life here. But overall, not looking too great. In the 4-seamer. So here, the lineup of Bubich and Feltner. And here I went with a Minnesota mini and an A's 5-man. The Dodgers were a team that I wanted to get some exposure to against Shota Imanaga. His xFIP is horrendous. In our research sheets, he looked like you could attack him. Also, Chicago's bullpen has not been fantastic. So, all of these factors would lead you to maybe play them, especially when, pitching tonight was so gross and the most valuable pitching was saying, hey, take one high, one low, or stick with 2 high. Another build here. Bassett, again, shit in the bed for me. But here I have the Dodgers and the Athletics. Here, Bubich and Feltner. I have the A's Twins mini with a Corbin Carroll one-off. And overall, to show you guys just my exposure here. So in 20 max, what I like to do is I like to keep my pitching pool as small as I possibly can. What I mean by that is I don't like to be exposed to more than maybe 6 pitchers. If there's, some guys that project well, that are similar salaries, that I can get like a really big ownership discount. So I try to keep it to, no more than 6, but, 4 to 5 is ideally where I like to be, just because if I want to be right, if one night I'm going to get right, I want to win as much money as I can. And also I want to have a tight core. So I usually pick anywhere from 3 to 4. If it's a bigger slate, sometimes 5 offenses where I really try and build my 5-man stacks around. So as you can see here, I am heavy Bubich. I almost locked him in 20 max. Chris Bassett made up about almost half my portfolio. And then I have Feltner and Ober, the only 2 guys who I really thought were even valuable at their salary. So that's where I landed for pitching. When you go look at all my players, you'll see Corbin Carroll, Tim Tawa, with the A's, very much invested in the A's tonight. Naylor down here, Butler, Moreno, Rangers. So I built a lot of my teams today around the Athletics, the Diamondbacks, and the Rangers. I also got exposure to the Angels. That's another team that I liked, the Atlanta. And I took some, LAD 5-mans and some minis from Tampa Bay and Atlanta. And yeah, I got some White Sox in lineups where maybe I didn't play Ober, try to get some leverage there. At first base, Soderstrom is my highest exposed player, followed by Josh Smith. Second base is Tim Tawa, just a screaming value, especially if you're going to play Arizona minis or full stacks. Third base, Luis Urias. My Oakland Athletic stacks, he just makes a lot work there. Josh Smith too, obviously big part of my portfolio. Wilson on the Athletics. Guy's just like an absolute pro hitter. He shouldn't be batting 7th, but you know what? He makes the stacks work and he's cheap. And then there's Seager, obviously, Perdomo, Neto, Correa for the minis, Betts, and Newman. And then in the catcher, Langeliers, Moreno, Higashioka, Ohapi, Smith. And outfield, Carroll, Rooker, Langford, Butler. You guys get it, very, very tight core. And if this core happens to hit and do well, I'm going to have a big night. And if it doesn't, I'm going to lose. And that's okay with me. So that has been the model review for tonight. That has been, I'll look into the contest. Please come check us out over at Paydirt DFS if you haven't already. And let's hope we bring home some trophies tonight. See everybody in the Discord.